One more. Yay!
Yay! That is so cool. One day I shall master that technique, but not today.
Right. Well, welcome, Anissa Jones from Down Under. I'm Karen Jackson, and Sandy Vansall is my co-host. Sorry, Sandy, I didn't let you say your name today.
Okay.
Welcome, Anissa.
Hello. Oh, it's so good to be back.
Good. How are you doing? Everything okay?
It's winter in Australia. It's yucky winter in Australia, but it's good. And we're all on 3 different continents again, which is nice. So look at this. You're going global.
I know, it's just crazy. It's so awesome. This is a great program. Okay, so today we are talking to Anissa about, is it pronounced NAIDOC week?
It is. Oh, look at you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and I've got my shirt on, but it keeps falling down, so I have to keep it. Well, it's the way it's set is too big, so I'm just going to keep lifting it. Looks like I'm choking myself, but I'm not. I know. I try to be. Humor is how I do things. I should be a comedian. Maybe I wasn't like that. Yeah. So coming up in Australia, starting next. Oh, I want to say the 4th of July. I'm going to be in trouble if I get it wrong, which is ironic because it's Independence Day for America on that date. We have NAIDOC Week, and NAIDOC Week stands for the National Aborigines Day Observance Committee. Now, we don't call ourselves Aborigines anymore. We call ourselves Aboriginals or First Nations people. But before I do that, I better do this because I got into trouble last time I didn't. So I'd like to acknowledge that today I am beaming into you from the lovely and beautiful but cold Wiradjuri country. And I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present and to any Aboriginal people who are going to be watching this after we put it live. Excuse me. I also have bronchial asthma. See, this is why I hate winter. So NAIDOC Week is a great week. We have this thing, though, in the last 2 years. COVID has not been kind to NAIDOC Week. Last year we had to move it from winter. I don't know what it is with First Nations celebrations. They always have to be in the cold weather. I think it's a conspiracy, but I'm waiting to hear back from a few people. So we moved it to November last year because all of Australia was in lockdown with COVID. Sadly, this year it'll happen everywhere else but New South Wales. Because New South Wales is now in lockdown for COVID. Well, the city of Sydney is not where I am, which is really, really sad. So, courses, I was supposed to be in Sydney next week delivering a cultural education course that's it's been moved. We don't know when, though, but it's been moved. There was the Kui Festival, which is also going to be moved. Any and all NAIDOC celebrations have been canned for the second week of the school holidays in Australia for New South Wales because we're in lockdown to the 9th of June. Sorry, 9th of July. I'm in June right now. See, I need more caffeine. So NAIDOC Week is just a really good week of the community coming together. And in the notes, sorry, I sent you a picture of the winning poster. So every year in Australia, they call for artists, Aboriginal artists, to design the NAIDOC Week poster. And there's a young girl who won it this year, and it's just amazing. I use it as my Microsoft Teams background all the time at work. It's just a beautiful piece of art. And so the point of NAIDOC Week is to showcase our culture. Usually we have a huge ball. So it's Australia-wide ball. Everyone goes to one spot. Then we also have state balls, and we can't do that this year again, which is really shameful. Me. And But it gives us that time when we do come together to celebrate and also to share our language, our weaving techniques. So my friend was going to be at the Kui Festival. Obviously, that's not going to happen, but they are doing things next week in the roll up to NAIDOC week because they're still in the ACT, which is not in lockdown. So Ronnie's pretty good, and I just want to give a shout out to her. This is not going to work for me today. Hang on.
Okay.
You can ask me, and I'm just going to cough my guts up. Sorry.
Well, take a break.
I haven't got COVID. I haven't.
Okay. Okay. Well, you take a second, and I'm going to I think I'm going to change our background or make the thumbnail, if it's all right, use the background that you provided, the image. And I just think that would be really beautiful. I've been practicing my thumbnail technique, and so I'll just do that. It's just so beautiful. I like the image you provided. So that's chosen for their logo for their celebration.
You get it on shirts. You can get it stickers. One of our local supermarkets actually gives them away, the posters. Free to get them out into the community, so I'll have to go down the road tomorrow and grab one. So cool. It's great. You can, so there's a lot of things behind it. Then you have Aboriginal t-shirt groups who will design shirts as well to purchase, or they'll have art exhibitions. So it's a really great time of the year. It's just a shame that COVID has, for the second time, sort of destroyed it all. But from that has come a really great idea that myself and a couple of people that I work with at TAFE New South Wales are going to be doing in terms of storytelling. So that was the big thing. So we were going to use, I don't know, it's in our blood to tell stories. We tell stories. It's how we get our point across, and we're always talking. As I said, I could talk underwater, hence why I cough a bit too much. I haven't talked all day, so this is like, saving up. I'm just getting it in now while I can. So the point of it is to create videos with members of the community to tell their story. Now, their story doesn't have to be its Aboriginal focus. It can be a story about their life. It can be what they do, for a career, to promote Aboriginal people being in the workforce. I've had people, when I've run it in the ACT, similar sort of one, but in the ACT we had people who were talking about their family members, so a bit of history there, where they actually came from. So one person talked about being Arunta, which is right near Uluru, which is the big rock in the middle of the country. And so she talked about her family. I had another student talk about that her daughter's ancestor was David Unipen, who was a very famous Aboriginal person. He was put on our currency before we changed it, because we did change it to plastic. It used to be paper, and I know. We won't go there. That's another story in itself. Anyway, they changed it, and so she did the road trip back to his traditional lands and talked about that with her daughter. So there's a lot of great things. It's, they make the video themselves, so they have to learn the digital skills. So it's finding videographers or companies, preferably Aboriginal, to support the staff, the students and the staff, because we actually get staff to do it as well. And I've already dobbed one of our staff in, because he's a former police officer, and we run projects that encourage Aboriginal people to join the police force. And I went, oh my God, this has a dual meaning here. Wow. He's sharing his story, but he's also, and he's great. I love him too. And, we've got people that are great artists or community leaders, and hearing stories from our elders is really important, because for some of them, these are stories that should be documented for the community. And it could be why, for example, there's a place in Narrandera that's called Poison Creek Waterhole, and Narrandera is about 2 hours west of where I am right now, and the council there wanted to change the name of the creek, and the Aboriginal people said no. It needs to stay as Poison Creek Waterhole, because the Australian government and certain aspects of it, one way of trying to kill us off was to poison our waterholes and with arsenic so that we would die out. And so that story is still relevant, and it's that keeping that story, but also not ignoring what happened in the past. And sometimes in Australia, there are things that are swept under the carpet, and it's really important that those stories are still around in 100 years. For, even my grandson, I would love for him to know stories about our country. And as such, I've made connections with one of my elders back in Sydney to do a similar project with the community there to keep our stories going as well. So I'm going to be working with elders, Wiradjuri elders, both here in Kiridamundra, but also down at Brungle Mission, which was like a reservation in the First Nations American perspective. And it's a beautiful place down there. It's also colder, and it's in the wind tunnel of the mountains.
Oh dear,
the wind tunnel of the mountains. But it is, the point of the project is to upskill Aboriginal people with digital literacy, being able to edit, record.
Oh yeah.
Do a bit of photography, digital photography, embedding it in their videos. They get a professional photo shoot done. So then it goes on all the marketing, and it's a big launch, and it's a great way of encouraging Aboriginal people to have those digital skills, because regardless of your race, a lot of people don't have those skills. Usually over a certain age, not all the time. There are some kids under 20 who don't have those skills either. My daughter is 27, and I know how to do more than she does, because she's IT illiterate, but her sister is very IT savvy, and so is her brother. So, every generation there can be people who are good at it and others who aren't, but it's also the premise of it all is to save the stories.
Yeah.
And working with the community to do that. And then the next step would be later on incorporating the language. So, I was at a book launch, and one of the elders was asked to speak a few words in language, and she just stood up with, and said, I can't speak my language, because the policy was if you did, you could go to jail, or you could be beaten. It was really, really bad. So when she said that, broke my heart. And so we're organising that so that she can start doing that in a safe space. It's really important. And there are a lot of elders out there who don't know how to traditionally weave, or don't know how to cut coolamons or canoes, or the foods, or the medicines, because they were denied that in their growing up, because they were put on those missions. And so it's nice to give back to them. So I'm applying for a federal grant, because it's always important that the federal people pay for it.
Sure.
Because I've got a student who works in a section, and I said to her, is there any money? And she's like, yeah, send it to me. And I'm like, great. So I'm going to have the engagement officer who I work with, a great guy named Stuart James. He's an artist, but he's also an amazing guy, and we're going to work together. And then Anissa Marie, who is an elder in Sydney, she's going to do the Sydney version of it. And it's just that positive promotion of stories, but also, it's that digital record keeping. And in Australia, we have a place called AATSIS, which is the Australian Institute for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Studies, and they have the biggest digital record. They have recordings of people speaking in language. They have pictures. They have, all these things. And so this would be nice to be able to say to them, look, we've done this, for eternity.
Here it is.
Yeah, so it's just using all of those skills. And I use my cricket with the Arnies at Brungle. If you don't know what that is, people don't look it up, because it's very addictive. We were making NAIDOC week things, and I've probably shared some on Twitter. I know I have on Insta, but we were making for the NAIDOC ball, which was last night in Gundagai, and they're like, we don't know how to use the computer, Anissa. And I'm like, that's okay, I got it. And, I'm teaching them how to do things. And whilst I'm teaching them how to do stuff, they're sharing stories with me. And so that's where it started to formulate. And it's such a nice thing. And I know my friends at in Digital, which is an Aboriginal Microsoft, kids are playing. Oh, my God, I love it. They've been doing stuff very similar with some of our elders, because they're Darug women as well. And, it's just nice to see that there are groups of people out there trying to, use the 21st century skills, but also maintain that historical connection. And I know that they've been working with people in Canada. So how cool is that? COVID, but we can do everything online. It's such a nice, I suppose the learning from COVID is we can actually do things like this to an extent, which is always a good thing. And I think your last person on air was talking about what we've learned from COVID, and we have learned a lot from COVID, and how not to run a class online is definitely one of them. Says me who teaches online. But it's this will be face-to-face, because obviously there will be some things we have to be really careful about. So we also have up the road the Cootamundra Girls Home, which has been given back to the community, the Aboriginal community. And so they've already started doing a documentary, but it'd be nice to get some of their stories in it. But again, that was a really traumatic time for them. We've only been told recently the girls, like there's bodies, from the school in Canada where they found all the bodies and that. There's bodies up there, you know what I mean? Like being respectful. But these are things and these stories need to come out so that we don't repeat our history, but we also acknowledge that it was not a good time in our histories. And how do we move forward? So, trying to keep it in that positive momentum.
And be sensitive to their stories.
And that's it. And I'm volunteering when they come here because it's in my hometown now. And it'll be great to speak to them and have those little yarns with them. And, there's so many stories, whether they're good, bad or ugly, and in any culture, but it's nice if we can find a way to save them for everyone, future descendants and even just for our own personal records, which is always good.
Yeah.
So.
We had, when I first moved into technology from the classroom, we had a teacher who was very interested in oral histories. And, but in our town, she saw that a lot of grandpas and were not sharing their experiences growing up and going to war, World War II people. And so she started collecting for our local cultural activity center. She sent the high schoolers out to just record, Grandpa, tell me about how, or Grandma, what it was like when you were a child. And then that's how, and they just started recording and collecting and cataloging, recording, collecting, cataloging. And because she used the high school, it was all levels of all kinds of kids and all kinds of families. And so she really gathered a lot of stories that would have been lost to us. And so I think it's so great just to record some of the things. My sister was visiting just this week, and I was thinking, I should probably interview her and, record some of our stories because we laughed and giggled and cried and did all kinds of stuff about our childhood, and my kids don't know anything about that. They aren't around when we're sitting drinking coffee, telling their stories.
And that's it. You got to. We don't think of that though, do we? We really don't until it's right towards the end of someone's life, and we go, "Oh my God, I wish I'd got all these stories."
Yeah.
And it'd be nice to sit there and talk with them. And I think of the Time Machine, the newer version, and Orlando Jones is the computer guy, and he's telling the stories. Mm-hmm. That's what I think of. I want that record to be there, no matter what happens. The Morlocks are there, whatever. If anyone hasn't looked at that story, I highly recommend you look at the movie with Orlando Jones. But, I'm a science fiction nerd as well. But that keeping everything for the future is a huge thing. Like I'm thinking now, I've got all these photos. I've got all these photos on my phone. They're in the cloud as well, though, so hopefully they won't disappear. But there's a story behind each one.
Yeah.
And my kid's like, Mum, why do you keep taking photos? Because I want them, when I've left, they've got a record of and I think that's really important. And I think there should be programs all around the world that do this, because it's such an important piece of history that, it isn't always looked at until things happen, like what happened in Canada, or, when we've got the girls' home being given back to the community, like those really sad moments in history. Yes, they're sad, and yes, we need to be a bit more respectful when we deal with them. But wouldn't it be nice to have those records before this gets, to the the really sad part of it? Because we do know things happen, but I want to look at people doing language, people working in the community, people sharing their personal stories, in that positive light. And yes, there will be some topics that are a bit, sensitive.
Yeah.
But then there are some great ones. Like one of the aunties told me about down the river where she lives at Brungle. There used to be the biggest mussels, and they were really fleshy. And she says, they were the best mussels ever, and because of pollution and erosion and all of these British things, you can't do that anymore. No offense, Sandy. Okay, we call them colonisers. I just British because, not everyone will know what I'm talking about. But
I thought it's all globalisation now.
I know. But it's really sad that these things happen. And then you think about, even for me at home, one of the common remarks is when you say, this land was stolen and it was never ceded to you guys. It's like, well, go back and live on country. I would love to. Only problem is Sydney is sitting right where my country is. So if you're happy to give it all up, I'm happy to take it. You know what I mean? Like, happy to do it. But, having those really great stories, like Auntie Thelma shared with me that for us in Sydney, the boundaries for each tribe were the creeks. I didn't know that. Like, I knew there were boundaries, but she was told by another elder that the creeks are the boundaries. So I'm there going, I wonder if I can Google map that and then transpose something over the top for her, because my brain goes there. She's not as skilled in IT, but think about it. How good would that be if we could use tools like that to then put the original maps, even for like the Vikings or the Gauls or, any other ancient countries. But it'd be nice to be able to use those tools in that way. And, there might be people in, the ancient histories or anthropologists who do that already. It'd be nice if they shared their work with everybody else. So I'm sorry, Sandy, I said British, but I'm not blaming you. I'm just saying.
I'm Swedish at the moment, so I don't care.
That's all right. You can be a Swede. I'll be just. There's the joke it's not the joke, but there's the hashtag on Twitter, and I've used it a few times, and it's another day in the colony, because it's whenever anything really weird happens, we're like, it's another day in the colony, and that's where it lies. It's so funny. There are some amazing Aboriginal people on Twitter and Black social media. You find out so many things, and people share their stories, and I'm like, I might have to tap those people too. You know what I mean? Like that sort of social media post-COVID has been so much bigger, so much bigger, and people are sharing a lot more. So even though COVID is not a nice thing, some of the things that have come out of it have been really positive. Things have been really like people not putting on masks. I'm talking to you people in Sydney, or checking in. I'm talking to you people in Sydney, or leaving the greater area where you should be, Sydney. Like in Canberra, they actually fined 150 people for going and breaking the restrictions in Sydney. They'd all come to Canberra. So they've been all escorted to the border and kicked out. I'm like, fine them and lock them up. It's not like we don't know. If this was first
country about any of this, are you really?
There's just stupid people in this country. Honestly, they're stupid.
They're everywhere.
Oh no, it's like there's a dumb gene and most people got it. I don't know. I've got a relative who's like, what's this COVID stuff? Oh, it's all a joke. I'm like, well, when you die from it, then we can have that conversation, through the Ouija board or something. But I was just like, these people are so stupid. wear the mask, sign in, get vaccinated, stop being stupid. But a lot of Aboriginal people are actually doing that, which is great. And it's through that social media and everyone's sharing. You know, that's what I love about technology, is that the good side of technology, not the, phone calls in the middle of the night from like Burkina Faso. I don't know anyone in Burkina Faso, but I'm getting phone calls from them, and China. And I'm like, but, technology has given us some really great tools, but there's still stupid people. Stupid people. Wear the mask. There's a reason. Wear the mask. I just, even when I was in Sydney 2 weeks ago and there was a minor outbreak, like it was minor, it was like 10 people. And, you got to wear masks on the transport, and I'm going from the train to the plane, and people are going up the escalator to the airport and putting the mask on then. But they sat on the train for 30 minutes without a mask on. And you're just sitting there going, I'm going to slap you. I'm going to slap you, And I just think people are stupid. And Aboriginal people are more susceptible to getting things like this. Our bodies weren't, you know what I mean? Like, that's how smallpox ran so rampant when it first got here, because we didn't have the genes to deal with it. But it's been really good. Social media has gotten a lot of Aboriginal people vaccinated and locked down areas of communities to protect them, which is always a great thing. So we've been looking out for each other. Wear the mask. I keep saying that. I should get a shirt that says wear the mask.
Yeah.
I might make it because I've got a cricket. Again, do not look that up. You will have no money. I've got 3 and they've now brought new ones out. I'm like, I am not buying any more. But it's really good. So, I've got access to community here, got access to community at home. I'm now going to be working for Macquarie University, delivering a unit on Darug people, which is my mob, with the amazing Cassandra Rowe, who works for Indigital. So we're working together on this. So we'll be teaching the history of our culture. People go walk on country and they have to create videos of their country. I do that with my diploma of Aboriginal Studies, but that's more for Aboriginal people. So it'll be nice to see the difference in. So it's always just, staying connected, and because I have, so much time on my hands. Sandy, you get me? I'm doing a course. I'm doing a course on top of, so I can do other things later on next year, because I have so much time now. I have no children at home, apparently. But it's always a good thing. You always feel more. Yeah, I see you over there. He goes, what about me? That's my partner for everyone at home who's not paying attention. I love it. I love being busy, but I also like being very quiet. And I'm looking forward to this week of not having to do any work and relaxing, because only in New South Wales do you get a 2-week holiday. In America, I know you got a real big, long holiday. Yeah, you've earned it. But we're looking forward to our 2-week break. Not in COVID lockdown, but everyone else is enjoying that 2-week break where they can go do some things, and that'll give me time to plan and focus on this unit, make connections with people, and also have community meetings, because it's really important that we make touch with the elders and get their approval before we do anything. So that's that cultural responsibility, and that can be quite daunting at times. And you have that responsibility to your mob, but you also have the responsibility of being a government worker or being a teacher or being this or being that, and it can become quite draining at times. But I love my job and I love hearing those stories, and I've been very blessed to hear a lot of stories, and that's why I want everyone to be able to hear these stories. See, I could talk underwater. No, I'm not. My mute's not on.
No, Sandy was.
As saying, Anissa, it's a very passionate topic for you, isn't it, about getting these history about the country, the culture, the Aborigines. Now, would you call them that? Would you call them Indigenous? I don't know. But there's a conversation we're having yesterday with what is politically correct.
So it depends. So, there's so many names. So we've got Aboriginal. We've got Torres Strait Islander. That's for the second group in Australia, which everyone tends to forget about them. They're awesome. Then you've got First Australians, you've got First Nations, you've got the name of your mob. So I would introduce myself. I'm so going to get into trouble. As a Burra Darug woman, which is the Burra tribe of the Darug Nation, which means the kangaroo people. And the women's totem, though, is a possum, not an opossum, but an actual possum. You know, the cute ones, not the real ugly looking rat looking ones. They're very cute possums, but they are cheeky. And you know, so that's how I would. And a lot of Aboriginal people are now just saying I'm this person from this nation. But when I talk about First Nations pedagogy, it's always from that premise because it covers so many people. You know, and you always capitalise Aboriginal with a capital A. I can't stipulate that enough. I'm still getting assignments from students who are not Aboriginal with a lowercase a, and it's a proper noun. Look at me being an English teacher. It's a proper noun, and give it a name and make sure it's got a capital. But yeah, all the you know, if all the different mobs have different things. Like then we get into I'm a Koori because I'm from New South Wales. This gets better. Murrays are from Queensland. Noongars are from WA and South Australia. Kooris are also in Victoria, but it's spelled differently. You've got Palawa, which is Tasmania, and I can't tell you what the Northern Territory is because my brain's gone to mush, but apologies, Northern Territory. But there's so many different names, and you can go, oh, are you Koori? And you're like, no, I'm Murray. And you're like, oh, I know where you're from then. You're Queenslander. So it's like we need a Rolodex of like, you know, words and everything sometimes. And don't even get me started on family trees because we'll be here till Christmas 2032. It's just huge. There's so many things that, you know, you're sitting there and you're like, who's your cousin? That's my cousin. That's my cousin. That's my cousin. It's not like cousins in the set. No, there's just not like mum, dad, mum's sister and dad's sister. No, there's like a billion. And it's a very interesting family tree. And it's like everyone's an aunt if they're older than you and you respect them, or an uncle. Wow. And yeah. So it's just like, and then you can be an elder. So you're automatically then uncle or auntie. But elders can be 15. I'm not joking. It's about the knowledge that they keep and the way they walk in life and that sort of stuff, as opposed to turning 50, which is what happens in some areas of Australia. You turn 50, bang, you're an elder, which is kind of interesting, but it also has ramifications from the stolen gen where a lot of the elders in that middle bit didn't know who they were. And so you've had to backfill, I suppose, if you want to use a public service term, to make sure that we actually have owners and traditional owners, and then that can be convoluted at times too. Like back at home, there's big issues about who's traditional owners, who's not. Sydney's a big city, a lot of money to be made. Yeah, it comes down to the financial side of things, which is really disappointing because, if you've ever been to Sydney, and I highly recommend you do, but not during this week because it's COVID, go and have a look, and there's Barangaroo Point. And it's just around from the Opera House. Excuse me. And there's trees that are older than Jesus, I suppose, if you want to say that. There are trees you go around and you do this walk, and it's on the harbour. So, it's a really beautiful walk, but it's also that getting back to nature and looking at, yes, this is metropolis of Sydney. City is here, but it's a beautiful landscape as well. And I'm glad that they were able to keep that. I personally would just, not let Sydney turn into the metropolis that it is now, but I'm not in charge. But it's really nice. And, you can go under the harbour bridge, and you can go along the walkways there and have a look at Sydney that way. And those sorts of sides of Sydney are really, really nice. I'm not keen on the main drags because they're so full of traffic. It looks like you're in Italy at times. And they're all crazy when they drive around it. They don't know how to drive around a roundabout or to the speed limit or in their own lane. So you gotta, do I really want to do this? Yes, you want to go to Sydney, but not during COVID. But it's a nice place. I love it. It's almost like a screen comes over me, like a curtains peel when I get onto country, and it's just a nice feeling to be home, but can't do it now. Was meant to in the holidays a couple of times. Now I can't, so COVID.
So, Anissa, if myself or Karen were coming to Australia, what would we be called? So what would the name for us be?
The nice name. The nice name.
Yeah.
Visitors.
Visitors.
No. So we do have some words for non-Aboriginal people, but they're usually, when we're frustrated or and we all have our own. So every like Noongars have their own word and Murrays have their word. But we do have some, but it's only when you're dealing with difficult people, like, we have the saying, the government.
Well, we won't be difficult. We are not very respectful.
We call our government the government because government means what?
You would call us friends.
I do. So Midigar in my language, Midigar means friend. But so when you say what are me Midigar, that's hello friend.
Nice.
And I always use that when I'm sending out my emails to mob mostly and to people that I know will appreciate it. Because it, some people go, what the hell is she writing? This is a tip. I had not. And Google Translate has not managed to translate Aboriginal language effectively. So I'm putting a challenge out to Google. Please fix that ASAP. And the same with Facebook, because some of their translations are really rude, like rude. So they need to get a hook on to Indigenous people and the way we say things. Because even just talking in language, it can come across as something that you totally don't. I mean, you put in a different language, any language, sometimes you don't get what the meaning is. But it like I've seen it and I've translated stuff and I've gone, no. So it was not what the person had intended to be said. It was really rude. So, so there's a downside to technology, but the positive is that, they have people they can tap into. And I think we've got about 200 languages or maybe less now still alive or being brought back. I'm lucky because a lot of our language was recorded by the British. So William Dawes, before he went back to England, he learned the language with a young Darug girl named Patagarang. And he had a dictionary of it, which was fabulous. So a lot of the, even the reverends and that would go along the Hawkesbury River, they had the place names. They actually got the Aboriginal place names for them. So we're very lucky. Others aren't as lucky, but we're lucky that we have those documents. Even, no matter where they come from, they're still there. Obviously, we don't have the audio version, but we still do have some people who speak the language, which is really good. So it's just building that back up again. So, yes, shout out to the good people, colonisers, who did the right thing. I didn't say British. I was going to like, no, colonisers. But some of them did a really good job in that sense of William Dawes was really good. Like he embraced the culture. He embraced all of that. But, there are other people, for example, who like Columbus, have universities named after them, streets named after them, suburbs named after them. And history has not been kind to them because we look at their documents and go, seriously? Like one of them says, if there are any Aboriginal troublemakers, chop their heads off and send them back to England. And I'm not joking, I'm dead serious, like in a jar, fermented in a jar of like booze. And one of our greatest warriors named the Rainbow Warrior, his name was Bemaway, and Bemel means earth. And so he was a Darug man. And his head was cut off, transported to Britain, and they still have not found it to this day. So he's never had a proper burial. So if anyone works at the British Museum, find the head, please. Would be happy to have it back. You know what I mean? Like it's somewhere in like the storage room, right down the bottom in the basement. I'm like, anyway, because it was preserved, it could actually still be pretty good. So you never know. You're like in a big city, but like Alexander the Great, all in honey, but it was booze. So I don't know. Is honey better than booze? I don't know.
Wow.
I know. Listen to me. I could talk about this till the cows come home.
I know. And what we would like you to do, Anissa, is come on and give us so much more on this, because I know I want to learn more about this, learn the history, and you can teach us some more of the language. Maybe bring some of your students on to
some of their projects.
Well, see, that'd be lovely. And I might also grab, Cassie to come and do some too, because I'm just putting it. No, she's going to watch this later on. So don't worry, because in my diploma class we've done weaving, we've talked about language, we talk about a lot of cultural things, and there's some great books that I will share. And for those of you in Australia that are interested, there's Aboriginal Australia by Richard Broome, which is a great book, and it was updated 2 years ago. So it's really, relevant, and it talks about our Sorry Day and NAIDOC week, and it talks about, I'm not keen on the chapter 2 title, so Richard Broome changed that one. There's no Eora, but there we go. But there's a whole pile of other things. And then we've got these great books called People of the River by Grace Casketon, which actually is amazing. And I got one from Val Attenborough the other day, and it actually has maps on it of the land. Oh, hang on. It's under my computer. Give me a second. I'll show you the cover. I don't want to knock my computer over, so forgive me. There we go. So this is the book by Sydney's Aboriginal Past. And this is by Val Attenborough. And what I mean by, I shared this with one of my students who's also a colleague of mine at TAFE. So there's maps. They've done actual maps in here. Sorry for the people that are listening to this podcast. Highly recommend you stop listening to the actual podcast and get onto the YouTube version. I swear to God, I'm shocking. So what it does is it shows you where the shell middens are and those sorts. So the shell middens are where we would come and have a big feed. So it's like, your rubbish tip, but not your rubbish tip, because we weren't like that. So there's so many great things in here. And then there's actual coloured pictures of rock engravings. So this is on country for me. So this is about, I love this book. I bought it and it cost me a bit, but I don't care. I'm not going to say how much because Tom's in the room and he'll probably get cranky. But I highly recommend. You're looking at me now. Okay, I highly recommend those of you in Australia, you grab those books. But I can also, there's some really great documentaries like The First Australians, which anyone can access on YouTube. So you don't have to be an Aussie to do it. It was created by SBS, which is our multicultural TV station, which is fabulous. And I love SBS. So they have some really good programs. And they do a lot of the soccer, so football. See, look, I said football.
Well, that note, Anissa, thank you so much for taking your time. And thank you to Tom.
Yeah, thanks, Tom.
He's waving now. He's waving from the sofa. He's doing it.
Thank you to all our listeners out there too. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at ChatWSK1. Find us and subscribe to our channel on Spotify, Google and Apple to hear more what is going on in education and what is happening in our cultural education, how we can embrace it. Mm-hmm. And we look forward to speaking to everyone again on both sides of the pond. So thank you, Anissa.
Thank you.
And bye.
Bye, everybody.